Hey, what's up guys? John here. We are witnessing the biggest investment opportunity of our lifetime in this specific segment of real estate. I think it's going to be the most attractive. I think we're going to see values fall 40, 50, 60%. I think we are going to see real panic inside of this one pocket that a lot of investors just aren't looking at yet. But I'm telling you, it's going to change city living. It's going to change the desirability of living in cities. It's going to change crime in these cities. It's going to change everything. Here's what that segment is. It's a $453 billion distressed pocket of real estate, just for example, in New York City. It says, citing a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research that outlines New York City office buildings may experience a massive wipeout in valuation upwards of $453 billion. Now, how commercial real estate and office buildings work is an investor will buy, let's say, a $100 million building, and they'll buy that $100 million building based on receiving a 5% return. So maybe they make $5 million a year in net income if they were to pay off the entire building up front. An easy way to look at this, imagine if you owned a deli and that deli was making, say, $5,000 a month, right? Or $50,000 a year, let's just call it. Even $50,000 in net income a year. At $1 million valuation, that would produce a 5% return, right? Similar with real estate. That's exactly how they look at real estate. They look at the return if they were to have paid all cash for it, excluding the expenses, the net income, the net growth on cash invested if they paid all cash for the building. However, when you're buying one of these buildings, an office building, and that office building, let's say you buy it at a 4% or a 5% vacancy rate, meaning out of 100 units, maybe 4 or 5 are vacant. What happens when you have a situation in which vacancy is now 50% of the entire building and rents are falling because there's so much supply of available office out there that you simply have to drop your rent? So you're losing on the vacancies, you're losing on the rents, and on top of that, you're losing on interest rates. So when it comes time to refinance any of these buildings, landlords are screwed. Huge. Like they're so screwed, because what's going to happen is they're going to take it back to their bank, because you can't get 30-year fixed rate loans on these buildings. They're going to take them back to the bank. It's a 3, 5, 7, maybe 10-year arm, potentially, and then they have to take it back to the bank and refinance it. The game plan for these investors is to buy the buildings, and then rents are going to continue to grow. It's going to be an inflation hedge, and there's going to be some type of value add play for the most part. And so what happens when that is no longer a factor, they're going to go back to the bank and say, hey, look, rents in the building were X, they dropped 50%. This is where we are at. The banks, they're not going to give a loan, because the lender is going to require a certain amount of equity in that property. It might be 25, 30, 35% that the owner must hold. So a $100 million building, the owner must have at least $25 million, for this example, in equity for them to get that $75 million loan. But if the value drops by 50% and that $100 million building is now valued at $50 million, that would mean that that owner would need roughly $10 million or $15 million worth of equity, so they might only be able to get a $35 million loan. So you look at the difference, it's about a half of a valuation on a loan amount, which is going to push so many of these operators completely out of water. Like, they're going to be so done. So what I think is ultimately going to happen is we are going to see so many investors that are running out there scooping up these deals, because now in places like New York and Los Angeles, even in Brussels, they're doing this all over the world, is where they're repurposing these structures to turn them into housing units, affordable housing. And so what I think is going to happen is they might be able to buy a building that was once valued at $100 million for $50 million, go spend $10 million, increase the income far past what it was producing at 100 million. Maybe it's worth 120, 150 million now, and they made a massive, massive return on equity. That's what I think is ultimately going to happen. We're going to start to see all these smart investors run out there waiting for interest rates to, shock a lot of these landlords and kind of break them into submission and walk away from their properties. What's unique about office, though, is that these office buildings, they're not personally guaranteed. Like me and you, let's say we buy a house. We have to, put our credit on the line. We're basically guaranteeing them. We're guaranteeing payment on that mortgage. If we don't pay it, our credit gets shot, and we end up paying dearly. And it's different with commercial, because what ultimately happens is the loan is based solely on the production value of that asset, the cash produced by that asset. And so if it gets to a point where all these operators are just not making money, they're just going to walk away. That's what's going to happen. And so when you look at how expensive these buildings are as a whole, these buildings, they're buying them for $100 million, $50 million, $200 million. They're buying them for huge valuations. And so a place like Los Angeles or New York City, they're paying large property tax bills every single year based on the value in which they paid for that property. So a $100 million property, they might be paying, $1 million, $1.5 million a year in just property taxes, just on that one building. Now you look at a downtown in any large city, you're gonna add up the buildings and you're gonna realize this is a hell of a lot of salaries for police officers, hell of a lot of salaries for street services. All of the money that's going to go into funding and protecting that city is going to get dried up as commercial real estate starts to get punished. And so what ultimately could happen is if there's less police there and there's less of a likelihood of getting caught for a crime and the economy is contracting because there's less jobs available, we're going to start to see more crime. Right? So we're going to start to see all this, and if they start to repurpose all of these buildings for affordable housing, there's going to be high density inside of these cities. It's going to be unique. What we're witnessing, I'm telling you, it's going to be very, very big, and there's no turning back from it. This is 100% going to happen. We are going to witness we're going to witness everything change in cities coming very, very soon. Take a look at this. And please hit the like button. Hit the like button. YouTube's going to share this content to educate more people about what's really going on. So, the value of office buildings plunged 45% in 2020, and it's forecasted to remain around 39% below these levels due to remote working, companies shrinking corporate workspaces, and some firms gravitating to newer buildings. Even though Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and other Wall Street firms have pushed for a return to office after Labor Day holiday, NYC's office occupancy trends are still below half, according to card swipe data provided by Castley Systems. The problem with NYC is a glut of decade-old buildings sitting partially empty. This is becoming a multi-billion-dollar problem for building owners. For a deeper dive into commercial real estate, the senior REIT analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence, Jeff Landrum, shows office REIT shares have plunged this year as fears over long-term tenant demand weigh over landlords. REIT focused in California fared the worst in Q3, catching up to their New York peers, who have fallen the most year to date, even though leasing volumes continue to show elevated demand for top quality space. Vornado Realty Trust, a real estate investment trust with massive exposure to NYC office, is one of the worst performing REITs year to date, about 42%. Langborn pointed out that NYC REIT valuations continue to slide as there's no improvement in the demand picture anytime soon. There's not going to be any improvement in office. We are likely going to see operators that have the financial capacity to reduce rents do it. They're going to do it because they're not going to have a choice. Either just going to sit completely vacant or, nothing's going to happen. It is crazy just how bad the office space is, even where I am right now in Florida. I'm in probably a 30, 35 unit building in my office. There's maybe 4 to 5 offices that are actually rented. Most of them are completely vacant, no one's here. I did a video kind of showing you guys what that looked like a little while ago. And I'm gonna actually pick up the phone. I'm gonna walk around and kind of show you guys, because just to kind of put this in a picture. Yeah, there's 5 offices that are occupied on the top level, but most of these are that's actually probably one of the first times I've seen someone in the hallways walking around. Probably one of the first times I've seen people. I'll occasionally hear people inside, but the parking lot is completely empty. There's maybe 3 cars. It's dead, and they bought this property top dollar. It's a great location. And what I think is going to ultimately happen is you're going to start to see all these operators simply just trying to repurpose the buildings for housing if they have to, but especially in the big cities, because they're going to be able to hack these units down so small, turn them into bachelors, studios, and really just pull out massive yields on these properties. We're going to witness it. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a massive investment opportunity. I'm telling you guys, we are going to witness something huge, especially in New York City. Pay attention to New York, pay attention to LA, pay attention to the big cities. That's where it's likely going to happen first. What do you think about it? Drop below, hit the like button. YouTube's going to share this content to educate more people about what's really going on. Subscribe here. And on my second channel, it's an interactive call-in show and a podcast. If you need help fixing your credit, we would love to help you at CashNow.Video. That's CashNow.Video. If you'd like to make money from home, go to CashNow.Video/money, join the Discord channel, and go to the Start Here tab, go through the steps, and then we have a Zoom call Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I basically teach you and go through everything with you. Any questions that you have will be answered there. So be sure to go over there. I hope to see you over there. And LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok in the banner. I'll catch you guys later.